Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, E-Labeling and What It Means for Regulatory Teams, presented by Schlafender Haza. And Roda Liste also agreed to participate with us to also share their insights about the subject. Let me first introduce you to our presenters. We have Mike Bird, Director of Product Management at Schlafender Haza, Josephine Paslat, a product owner at Passion Solutions and a pharmacist at Roda Liste, and Karina Bachman also works in the patient solutions team and the pharmacist at Roda Liste. So let's talk about Schlafender Haza. So Schlafender Haza is a document comparison software, provides a document comparison software for pharma-regulated industries called TVT. It is designed for and proven within the highly regulated life science industry. TVT is also currently used by the top 20 life science companies and 5 health authorities. Now I'm going to give it to Karina to talk about Roda Liste.
Yes, so Rote Liste is a pharmaceutical compendium for Germany and provides information on medicines for over 90 years now. It's seen as a reliable source and it's advertising free. The information is widely available through different media, mainly digital, including web, app, and XML, but there are as well analog media, as we, for example, publish the Rote Liste book once a year. Rote Liste has a special focus on digital enhancement, such as EPI. Therefore, Rote Liste offers services including the digital SMPC and PIL, where we will take a closer look at later. For now, I hand back to Schlafender Haza.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody to our webcast. Just take you through the agenda very quickly for this afternoon and this morning. So first of all, an overview on what we're talking about here, what specifically is e-labeling in this context. Then we'd like to share what the global landscape of e-labeling looks like. So who is doing what, where, and how far down the line they are with it. We'd also like to talk about EPI in the EU. So I'm going to hand over to Rote Liste at that point so they can dive into a case study there on what's happening with the EMA. And then I'm sure you're interested in how all this will affect you, which is why you're probably joining this webcast in the first place. Some challenges and pain points that we see that we may be able to help address, and then just to talk about next steps, what you can do to help make this transition as seamless as possible. Okay, so what are we talking about here? So e-labeling, I think most people will know, is digitized or digital product information. So it's replacing the printed leaflet that is currently within the outer carton of packaging. E-labeling is not new, it's been around for quite some time, but it's probably what we would call old school. It's mainly PDFs posted onto various websites that are publicly accessible. They can be downloaded, but things are changing, things are advancing, and that's why that's what we're going to talk about today. So what is this change that's happening? Well, basically this is kind of new technology. Instead of the traditional PDFs, we're looking at more interactive digital labeling. They're accessed via mainly via 2D codes on the packaging. So very easy for people to access using these new technology enablers. So the technology not only for the e-labeling themselves, but also for the access to the e-labeling. And there are a lot of benefits for this, and we'll dive into them a little bit later on. But some of the benefits are, as I just said, the accessibility of it, the adaptability of it, so the ability to be translated, for example. Searchability, PDFs currently are not extremely searchable, so this new technology allows a lot more interaction from that perspective. Updatable, so you always know you've got the latest information, the most updated leaflet there. And then there's also this shift away from printed leaflets is obviously a big environmental boon as well. It's a huge positive if you think about all the material that is used to make and distribute the paper leaflets. Okay, so next, you may have had a sneak preview of that just then, but next we have a live poll. Okay, thank you. So where is your company in your e-labeling adoption journey now? So a few options there. We think we've probably got a good idea of where a lot of people are, but it's always interesting to find this out as time goes on. E-labeling is, as I say, not new, but it's changing. The new technology is in place. And so it's always interesting for us to find out what's going on out there in the marketplace. What we would have expected to see, and it's still going, of course, is that just starting to explore. So the planning phase, and that's probably in line with where the health authorities are, where the regulations are going. So a lot of people are keeping up with that. But we'll just give it a few more seconds just to get the majority of the audience pollsters in place. So I'm not sure is also a good answer because not everybody knows, and that's probably one of the reasons why, again, that you're attending this webinar, to try and get a bit more information on what's happening. Some in the planning phase, as we can see, some already compliant, which is that's great news. So I think we're probably getting as far as we're going to get there with that. So yeah, so as I said, if you look at the global landscape and where the various regulatory bodies are, they're kind of in the planning, pilot, trialing phase. So that's kind of in line with the top results there. And not sure is also an okay answer. So thank you for that. Now I can move on to what's happening in the global landscape. So you can see there, so starting from last year and stretching out to 2028, I'll just go into a bit more detail on this. So lots of planning taking place over the last 12 months and also into the first half of this year. Lots of research on the technology because it's new to a lot of people. And the technology we're talking about here is XML. And this is very different to PDFs. So this allows for that level of interactivity that I spoke about a little bit earlier, but it also means that there's an adoption journey in here for the regulators, for vendors, for the pharmaceutical companies themselves. Of course, people have to learn about this. So nothing is being rushed. Pilot schemes are in place. Some of you may know that the EMA pilot scheme finished last year, and the report was issued fairly recently on the success of that pilot scheme. So that means there's going to be a level of implementation and adoption. And you can see 2025, we've got highlighted for voluntary implementation or implementation of voluntary use of the new XML e-labeling, which Josephine and Karina are going to speak about in a little bit. You can also see, if you fast forward to 2028, that it's suggesting that mandatory implementation will be taking place then. This is my speculation purely. I'm not speaking on behalf of the EMA. But what I'm trying to really point out there is that this all takes time. And the regulators, although wanting to move as fast as possible, obviously need to make sure that everybody's on board with this. We've seen that, for example, Jordan were very active in making e-labeling with XML using the FHIR technology mandatory this year. And that's had its challenges as well for people to catch up. So it's been very interesting to watch what's happening there. One other thing to point out, you can see Canada in 2025 H2. This is e-labeling. This is XML, but it's for the SPL, structured product labeling. So it's not the FHIR technology that everybody seems to be talking about. And I'll just touch on that for a little bit. This is not exclusively about FHIR. But FHIR is a hot topic. FHIR is spelled FHIR, and it stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources. And the fast part of it is about the ease of adoption. So it's been designed, it's been around for a long time, but it's really taking hold now in the industry. And it's been designed to be adopted very quickly because it's adopted very easily. It shouldn't be difficult for people to adapt to this new technology. So that's the fast aspect of it. It's interoperable because It's talking to different systems. This is one of the beauty of XML in general, is that it can be used and reused for various different systems and in different formats. And then we know that the EMA, the EMA trial, that was the pilot that was done last year, was for this FIRE technology. We know that the FDA in the US are also very interested in this. So across the board, there's a lot of interest in FIRE in particular. Now, there are other kinds, if you like, other flavors of XML in e-labeling. There is an association called the Pharma Ledger Association, which also is being backed by quite a number of big pharma companies. And they also have a developing kind of pre-standard for e-labeling using XML. So lots happening, lots of exciting things. Nothing really concrete and set in stone yet, because everybody's still exploring this. But I thought it would be interesting to give you an overview of where we are. Okay, at this point, I will now hand over to Josephine and Karina, and they're going to take you into a deep dive into what's happening in the EU and in Germany.
Thank you, Mike, for your introduction to the e-labeling topic. We'll jump right into a quick overview of EPI in the European Union. Next slide, please. So, as already mentioned, EMA ran a pilot for the EPI project last year, and it was launched in July 2023 and completed in August 2024. It was for centrally authorized procedures, mutual recognition, and also decentralized procedures. During that pilot phase, 23 EPIs were approved in the course of live regulatory procedures. The participating national medicines agencies were of the Netherlands, Spain, Denmark, and Sweden. There's also an ongoing consultation until June this year on the reflection paper on accessing EPI from medicines packages. The goal of the pilot was to include EPI into the business process, as well as creation and management of EPI in the PLM portal, which is short for Product Lifecycle Management Portal. Also upcoming next month is a user acceptance testing for their FIRE import functionality, where testers will provide their own FIRE XML EPI, and they will import this FIRE XML into the PLM portal via an application programming interface. EMA also developed in this course a tool to validate EPI locally against the EU EPI Common Standard. Also, EMA mentioned in their pilot report that the new EU pharma legislation, which is upcoming, will impact the evolution of EPI in the European Union. Next slide, please. This slide shows our current approach in Germany. And as you all know, many companies are at different stages of digitalization. But what they all have in common is that they share their Word files with the authorities. Therefore, we established a process where the Word file is uploaded into our Rote Liste portal and then converted into structured content. And this process is fully automated, and the conversion tool processes everything included in this document, like tables, lists, pictures, and even additional chapters like instructions for use. The conversion tool also creates a report that supports the user to identify possible improvements within their Word files. And then when the structured content is created with this tool, the company has to review the content. Next slide, please. And this is where text verification tools like Schlafender Hase come into play. So the structured content from the converter is easily transformed into different output formats, such as HTML, PDF, or a FIRE XML. And with the text verification tool, one can easily review the output formats and compare them to the original document to make sure everything is compliant. And now I will hand over to my colleague Karina, who will give you more details about this.
Yes, so next slide, please. Yeah, I continue with the RotaListe portal, the system where the pharmaceutical companies can create, manage, and store the electronic patient information leaflets. And in this picture, you can see the view of a pharmaceutical company after logging into the portal. It shows an overview of the e-pills which have already been created. And besides this alphabetical listing, it contains more detailed information, such as the history of published versions, the check report, the different output formats, and the status of publication. The globe indicates that the e-pill is published, and the green dot specifies which version is online. We already heard about the conversion of the Word file, which takes place in the systems. In addition to that, metadata is also maintained in the portal. It includes, for example, the title of the e-pill, the revision date, and the unique identifier. In Germany, it's the Pharmazentralnummer, short PZN. The metadata information is combined with the converted content in an XML file, and this XML file forms the basis for all the other output formats, such as PDF or HTML. And on the next slide, we can see a more detailed view of the structure of the XML. So on the right-hand side, you see the XML, and the first lines, mainly in red, contain the metadata, which is, for example, used for the header of a PDF file. And it's followed by the converted content, which is used for the main part of the PDF. And it can include images, tables, or lists. The metadata can also be used for the scan technology, which is implemented in our app for electronic patient information leaflets, GI 4.0. The principle of the scan technology is to scan the package, either bar or data matrix code, and being directly redirected to the regarding e-pill. This is possible by linking the unique identifier with the e-pill in our system. This functionality facilitates the usage of e-pill for patients and healthcare professionals. Another feature GI 4.0 offers is shown on the next slide. It's the display of changes within electronic package leaflets. Users are informed about the adjusted sections at a chapter level. Therefore, the published version is compared to the version published before. The display of changes section is placed just before the table of contents. We highlighted it here in red, and contains the following information: the revision date of the published e-pill, in this case it would be March 2025, and the revision date of the e-pill published before, June 2024. The information to read the named chapters thoughtfully due to changes, and the chapters where the changes have been made, in this case, chapter 4 and 6. The comparison is made automatically and is based on structured data. Additionally, this chapter can be used to place batch-specific information. For example, if the composition or packaging has been changed in a relevant way, like a pre-filled syringe is changed from a latex-containing to a latex-free product. The latex-specific information can be displayed in this chapter so that all relevant information are available for patients and healthcare professionals in one place. With this brief insight into some of the possibilities of EPI, I hand back to Mike.
Perfect. Thanks, Josephine and Karina. Very interesting, very useful information, I think, there. Okay, so now let's talk about how this is going to affect our audience members, for example. So a number of questions that in our experience have been asked of us from an interaction with our customers' perspective. There's still a lot of unknowns throughout the industry about e-labeling itself. So some of these questions, how, for example, will I have to change how I submit and manage? In terms of managing, probably not, because ultimately what's been happening so far is that labeling is created somehow digitally, usually via Word, then it's converted into a PDF and then it's printed, and that's the traditional workflow. So ultimately, the information is being published somehow. Currently, hard copies are being used. In the future, they may be phased out. But the management of that is still the same. The information is still going to be created and generated, and then something is still going to be published. So the management of the labeling should not change. The submission might change a little bit because, for example, in the EMA, they, as Josephine just outlined, they have the new submissions portal, the PLM, Product Lifecycle Management Portal. But still, it's loading the published information into a system, which is what's done now, generally speaking. So on from that, will there be more work for you to do as a regulatory professional? Well, there shouldn't be really, as I just outlined. The process generically at a high level should stay the same. There'll be some changes, some learning curves, perhaps throughout the process. But ultimately, it should be the same. And what it might actually do in the future, and again, this is my speculation, but what it might do is actually reduce some of the workload. In terms of learning new tools, I guess it depends to a degree how you're creating your labeling now. If you're doing it yourselves internally within the business, then yeah, perhaps you'll have to adopt a tool from a vendor if you're not outsourcing it. If you are outsourcing it, then, for example, Rotalista can do the conversions and create the XML e-labeling. So you might have to learn some new tools, and the only other thing there is the PLM portal. But that's very straightforward. It's been live for some time now, as Josephine pointed out. Very straightforward to use. But what happens if you don't prepare now? Well, this is, I guess, one of the reasons that you're attending this webinar, and probably attended many others like it, and been to conferences and talked about this kind of thing with your peers and colleagues, because it's still new. Everybody's learning it. The timelines are shifting. So it's important to start learning as much as possible now. Speak to vendors. So speak to vendors, Schaffender Hauser, Rotalista. We understand what's happening there. We understand the nature of the technology and the processes involved, so we can certainly help you out. If I could talk now about the workflow shift. So yeah, initially things will change. You might have to learn a new tool. You might have to get used to a new solution, new way of working. But ultimately, it's not going to be very difficult, and there will be many long-term benefits. So if you think about where we are now, you've got all these printed labels, you've got all this printed packaging, lots of different versions. Something has to manage those the version controls, make sure the most up-to-date version is the only one that's available. If things need updating, it's a slow process at the moment, and not just in terms of doing the updates, but getting people to sign off on them, so the review and the approvals. With the shift to electronic labeling, and XML-based electronic labeling, things will change a lot. You're going to have this structured source of truth, and it's very important to understand also the difference between structured and unstructured data. XML is structured data, so it can be that's what makes it interoperable. That's what makes it accessible and searchable and easily used across systems and across workflows. The current type of e-labeling, PDF, is unstructured, so that's what makes it harder to deal with. So there's an immediate benefit there. Updates will be quicker. If something changes in the marketplace, if there's some adverse events reporting that needs that means the leaflet will need to be updated, then of course that can be done almost in real time. And there's also a higher level of automation. At the moment, because there are printed leaflets, there is obviously an element of manual work in there. It's paper-based, of course. So this, as we get more into this in the following few years, then you're going to see more and more workflow tools and conversion tools and just higher levels of automation, which will obviously be a benefit from a workload perspective. Okay, so now we have our second and final poll, just before we start talking about potential challenges. So what do you think will be the biggest challenge in adapting to e-labeling? So just choose one of those 4 options, if you don't mind. So you can see, obviously, as the previous slide just talked about, is it going to be more work for you? That could be a potential issue that you could foresee. Is there going to be some IT problem, perhaps? Maybe not, but that's also, there's a level of understanding that still needs to be reached there. Is this going to cause some problems with compliance or validation throughout the process? And then, of course, the biggest question is the lack of internal resources. So people need to understand what this new landscape looks like. Professionals out there need to be trained on how things are going to change. It shouldn't require much more work, but depending on your internal processes and SOPs, that might be an issue that you can see, that you can foresee as a challenge. Okay, so we'll just give it another few seconds. Okay, there we are. So yeah, IT systems, IT and systems integration challenges. Well, again, there are many experts out there, so it's important that you interact with your vendors, because the vendors are at the forefront of this technology shift and this change. And obviously they can help you in conjunction with your internal IT departments to make sure this transition is as smooth as possible. Okay, so now we'll following on from that, we can touch upon some challenges and pain points that we see. So version control could be an issue. So, you know, if outdated information gets published, this, of course, could be a problem. The flip side to that is that that's more of a problem now than it will be in the future, because of the nature of the automation. The systems will allow only for the latest versions to be published, as I just said. More complexity in the submissions process, maybe. So, you know, how do you ensure, for example, that the different XML formats are compatible with the system that you want to use, or indeed the other way around? How is your system going to be compatible with the different XML formats? As I said, there is the FHIR format, there is the Farmer Ledger Association format. They're all XML, but they're all slightly different. The GS1 has a format. There are lots of different formats of, or different flavors, sorry, of XML out there. So that's something that requires a little bit of research. It depends on the region that you're in, the regions you're making the submissions in, where your labeling is published. And that's something that's going to come out as time goes on. If you think back to that global landscape chart, you know, there's a lot of activity happening now in planning and preparation. So decisions still have to be made. So it's something that you have to bear in mind. There's also the biggest worry that was from the previous slide, which I should talk about, the kind of IT involvement. Is it going to be an issue? If you have an IT department, which I think most companies probably do, then it shouldn't be an issue, because they will understand what's required and what's necessary. And again, speak to the vendors. Vendors are your friends in this instance. They can really help you out with this. Timelines, yes, we've talked about that quite a few times. I was speculating in that chart about the EMA making the fire standard mandatory by 2028. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. That's just purely my kind of speculation, not even a prediction. But this doesn't help. This causes uncertainty for people, of course. Not knowing when they need to start doing things. If the company isn't yet in the planning phase, then, you know, this can be a challenge. Again, a good route to get around this is obviously to, again, I keep saying it, speak to the vendors, because we have our fingers on the pulse there. Attend the conferences. All the conferences that are going on globally now, this is a super hot topic. Everybody's talking about it. Very often have representatives of the regulatory bodies there talking about their current position with it. So that's very useful to get that information kind of live and in real time. And then finally, readability across devices is something that we've heard about as a potential pain point. So if you think about how people access e-labeling, not now because it's a PDF and usually somebody would look at it on a laptop or a desktop. You're not generally looking at a PDF on your smartphone because it's not quite so easy to see. In the future, you're going to be scanning, it can happen now. You're scanning a 2D code on the pack. That's opening up, it's taking you to a web page and it's opening up this page full of information, the patient information leaflet, lots of other information too. You're looking at that on your smartphone. You could be looking at it on a tablet, any mobile device, basically. And so there is a fear. How do we make this work? You know, we don't necessarily understand the technology behind it and how it's going to be adapted to each of those. There is a whole topic called responsive design, which is exactly around this. It's how to make these kind of file formats compatible across multiple different devices. So it's not it's not an impossible challenge. It's something that everybody in this sector of the industry, in terms of the IT side of things, understands, knows about, and can help to prepare when the files are being created, when you're kind of building your workflow and your process for this. Okay, so on to the next slide, please. Okay, so just to reassure, to reassure the audience about increased workloads or problems that might be happening, it doesn't necessarily mean more work. If it's done properly, if the preparation is in place, it can actually prove to simplify and improve your daily workloads. And I think it's important to remember why this change is happening. This is not just happening because it's a fad or it's some kind of AI thing and it's just happening. It's the benefits for well, you can see the benefits. Accessibility, so patients, healthcare professionals, you can access it if you've got an internet connection, which a lot of people have. You can access this information instantly on your device. The adaptability, so for example, if it's published in a language that you don't speak, then it can be instantly translated in front of your face so you can read and understand the information. If you've got a particular condition, and there's a lot of information in these e-labeling pages, you can search for that particular condition, for that phrase, for that keyword, and it'll take you straight to the information that you need. You know it's always got the latest version. That's something that's important, obviously, for the audience here, but also obviously for the people at the end of the line, the patients and the users. And then a very important one, of course, is the environmental impact. So not just the printing, not just the materials that's used in printing, but the printing processes, the distribution, the packaging, the logistics involved in all that. There is a lot going on there. So this, over time, not immediately, but over time, will help to reduce that environmental impact as there is more of a shift towards online and less of a shift, and more of a shift away from tangible paper. Okay. So next slide, please. So this is very important. Preparation is key. This is what you can do right now to make sure that you're as prepared as you possibly can be, given the fluid nature of this kind of dynamic situation. So what's happening internally already? There were some not sures in that previous poll. It's important to know where your business is at, what your company is doing. There could be a team already in place that's working on this. You just don't know about it, but it's crucial to find out. If you're attending this webcast, you have an interest in this, so speak to your colleagues, speak to people internally and find out what's already happening, because it may be further along than you actually think. We've seen that chart. That's based on one of it is my speculative dates. The rest of it is what's actually happening out there. So these dates are being shared. These timelines are real, and we know where the various regions are. So important to keep an eye on that too. Again, vendors can help. Also go to the conferences, register for newsletters online. Keep your eye on what's happening with these timelines so you can prepare as far in advance as possible. Assess your current process. So how do you work now with this, with the traditional e-labeling, so the PDF e-labeling, and your printed versions? What are you doing now that might need to change? It might not need to change dramatically. Maybe have some new SOPs or maybe rewrite some SOPs. The workflow itself might not be such a dramatic change, but it's important that you know where your workflow is now, and then you can see what that change is going to be if there is one. Again, internal versus external, keep talking about the vendors, but that's for a good reason. Internal solutions can be sometimes slow to change and update. If you're working with external vendors, they're probably ahead of the game anyway. And if not, there are other vendors out there that you can, of course, approach and speak to and assess where they are with things and how they can help you. Whether you're doing it internally or externally, you're going to need somebody to manage this. So whether they're managing the vendor or managing the project or managing the internal team, just assess where your change management resources are. If they're aware of what's happening, how much they know, and if not, try and help them understand that they should be attending webcasts like this, for example, to try and see, to get as much of the latest information as possible. And then last but not least, surprise, surprise, talking about it again, make sure the vendors are there to support you. Really, really key. Rely on your vendors. They can be a huge and important help to you in this process. Okay, and that brings me to my last slide. Now I see that we've had some questions popping in, so maybe we can take some of those now at this point.
All right, so the first question we have, how to link the API into the individual commercial pack?
So I think that's a question I can answer for Rotelist, as we have some experience regarding this. So we link the label to the package via the product codes, for example, the GTIN, the NTIN, or the pharmaceutical product number, and it is possible to access the API via scanning the falsified medicine code on the box or even the barcode, and then the package leaflet pops up on your smartphone.
All right, thank you, Josephine. Another question, I think it also may be for you. How is the EMA addressing any concerns about pharma-based projects in underdeveloped areas where they do not have easy access to the technology required to pull up a digital label, IFU, and currently rely solely on printed leaflets?
Thank you. Yeah, I think there was also an addition to the question. I think it said, or not just the EMA, but regulatory bodies in general, like those from the regional implementation timeline shown earlier. So for the European Union, this applies only for European countries, and especially EMA always shows the current approach in the quarterly system demos, because they changed the project management to an agile method, and everyone can ask the questions. So the minimal viable product in Europe will always be the one that is applicable for all European countries within the EU. So they all have a similar technology background.
Thank you, Josephine. Next question, I think it's for Mike. How does this e-labeling impact the consumer? From a consumer point of view, I know I will get a paper inside my medicine, but now it has changed to e-labeling. Is the consumer ready for this?
It's a very good question. I think a lot of people, so outside the pharma industry, QR codes, for example, 2D codes have been scannable on a smartphone. In many cases, without even having a separate app, you can just use the camera, and that'll take you to some kind of marketing or promotional page, and that's kind of the technology we're adopting here, the same principle. So consumers will probably have some awareness of it, I would suspect. And probably some readiness for it. It shouldn't be too much of a shock. The shift between or from paper labeling to solely electronic labeling is going to take a long time, depending on the region. Some regions are more advanced than others. What is mandatory is that if there is no paper label in the pack, the manufacturer has to make a paper label available if somebody requests it. So I don't think the adoption is going to be so difficult for the end user, for the patient, basically.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Another question we have, how is the EPI managed within the ECTD during submission? Currently, we have a Word PDF document that is included. What type of web page platform is needed to store EPI for the patient's access? Must be very safety protected against any manipulation of the API.
Josephine, Karina, can you share some insights on that?
I can try. So for the pilot, there was the focus to implement EPI into the workflow because of the current state that they have to provide Word or PDF documents. However, I don't have any insights on the results, how it worked for the company to provide as an outcome. Yeah. And for the second question, what type of web page platform is needed to store EPI for the patient access? There are different approaches. So EMA hosts this platform. So it's an authority platform for their PLM portal. And for like private companies like Rote-Liste, of course, we have safety management and regulations. So everything that goes out to the patient is approved by the company and then released to the public.
Thank you, Josephine. Another question we have, are there any concerns from a security aspect that e-labeling be sufficiently protected from label modifications that compromise content or introduction of malware?
So I think this is addressing a very important point that we need a trusted source for electronic product information or e-labeling. And I think FHIR XMLs are very good to exchange the data already, and then they have to be stored into in a trusted source and then distributed to the patient and the customers who use this data.
Yeah, and I think from a kind of a security perspective, you think about things like ISO 27000, which is kind of all around data protection, not data protections as such, data security. So when you go through a process like that to align with these kind of security protocols, then there is a lot of testing in place to make sure that it's very difficult or impossible for external sources to access this data and manipulate it, of course. So ISO 27001 is the standard, and it's something that you should, if you're considering a vendor, for example, it's something that you should certainly look for and ask some questions about.
Thank you, Mike. Next questions. How the vendors will be able to help in the implementation of e-labeling? Do you have any examples?
I think Rote-Liste have a good example. That's their business.
Yeah, for Germany, that's our business, especially for the part after the approved labels from the authorities. There's also different companies on the market to help with creating electronic labels, for example, DocuVera and others on the market.
Yeah, and I mentioned it, I know, many times, but the vendors that are out there that are in this space are right at the forefront of this technology. They understand not only the technology, but the process around the conversion, and they understand the workflow from where we are now, or where you are now, to where you need to be in the future to be compliant with the whole e-labeling initiative. So very important to speak to the vendors to get that understanding. And if, again, I mentioned the conferences a few times, you go to any of the pharmaceutical or medical device conferences, vendors will be there. You can talk to them. That's why they're there, to try and discuss things with you, understand your needs, and help you.
Thank you, Mike. Next question. How do I know my 2D code links to the correct label?
Good question. So the 2D code is, well, we placed, just as a bit of background, the 2D code is placed on the pack. Encoded within that code is a lot of information. 2D codes can contain lots more data than traditional barcodes. And within that, there will be a URL, which is the link that will take the patient, the user, the end user, to the website or the web page of where the labeling is. You as a company needs to make sure, obviously, that URL is correct. And you can do that by using tools, automated tools that will do a comparison of that and do a check of that. So, for example, the TBT solution will do exactly that. If there's a code embedded within if there's a URL, sorry, embedded within the 2D code, that can be clicked, and that will then open up the browser, and then you can see the page where the information is. You can then download that as an HTML file, and you could run that through TBT and do a comparison, for example. So it's very easy to check the validity of those codes and the compliance in terms of where they take the user.
Thank you, Mike. The next question. I believe the implementation of e-labeling may lead to increased tampering practices. For example, if someone prints the QR code of one product and places it on another, it could raise serious safety and authenticity concerns. How can such risks be effectively mitigated?
So I can take that one, I guess. So it's a very good point. Again, checks should be in place throughout the process. So if you're doing a manual check of your packaging artwork, that's quite limiting. There's only so many things that you can see with your eyes. As I say, the QR codes have got lots of data embedded within them, which there's no way of reading them unless you can scan them and open them. You could do that with your smartphone, your mobile device, of course, but that's not really a very secure way of doing it, and there's no audit trail to what's happened. So again, there are tools out there like the TBT solution where you can identify, in the same way I just described, the QR code is on the pack. Where does it link to? Can I then download that HTML file and make sure that it's verified that it's correct? It's the correct labeling for that pack, that product.
All right. What is the difference between FIRE and PLA, if I'm reading it correctly?
Okay, FIRE is an upcoming standard that's, and I say upcoming because it's not a standard as such, because there are other flavors of XML out there, PLA being one of them. So FIRE is the Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources, and that's one part, the e-labeling, sorry, in FIRE is one part of a huge initiative and network of interconnected data exchange. Healthcare record, patient records, hospital information, all of this is contained within the FIRE ecosystem, and e-labeling is one part of that. Pharma Ledger, and that's an initiative that's been running for many years, driven by an organization called HL7, Health Level 7, and they've been pushing this. FIRE is now in its 5th iteration, I think. So they've been developing this and pushing it for quite some time. And this is, FHIR is what's being seriously looked at for adoption by, for example, the EMA, the US FDA, the Jordan Health Authority, etc. PLA is another flavor of XML, which is again part of an ecosystem. So the e-labeling is a small part of a bigger system, and this is more, without being too technical, this is more blockchain driven, but it's about providing health data or accessibility to health data for anybody who needs it and who can get it with a mobile device. There are other flavors of XML that are kind of standards too. So GS1, if you know the Global Standards Organization, GS1, amongst other things, they have standards for barcodes, for example, for 2D codes. There's a whole initiative for 2D codes called Project Sunrise 2027, I think it's called. And that's about advancing the 2D code technology, which is, of course, linked to e-labeling. GS1, as well as kind of owning that project, also have their own set of standards for XML, and e-labeling can also be a part of that. Again, it's a much wider ecosystem, and the labeling portion of it is just one small part of it. There are many types of XML, and I think it's important that we understand that there are many different types, but it's also important that we focus on there are currently two real drivers within trying to standardize, and that's FHIR and PLA.
Thank you, Mike. Next question, is it also possible to convert PDF files or only Word documents?
So at the moment, for the portal we have in Germany, it's only possible to convert Word documents, but as Josephine mentioned before, these are the documents which are used right now with the authorities. So this is why we focused on the Word documents.
I think maybe from a wider perspective, there is I'm conscious of the time here, but I think there is, the potential is out there. Again, vendor driven, the potential is out there to do PDF, to convert PDFs. So I think, again, it's worth looking, it's worth doing that research, worth going to the conferences and speaking to the vendors.
Thank you, and I think we'll take the last question. Are there other types of XML that I need to take into account?
Yes, I think that might have already been answered, but so FHIR, XML, and PLA are two of the more prominent, well-known ones. And PLA, I'm not sure if I said this, sorry, this is the Pharma Ledger Association, and that's the organization that's developing this blockchain-based ecosystem to also drive other things as well as e-labeling itself. GS1, as I said, has one too. There is another flavor called DITA, D-I-T-A, which stands for Darwin Infrastructure. I'm sorry, I don't know what it's. I can't remember the rest of it. But yes, there are lots of different flavors. I think if you keep your eye on FHIR, FHIR, and PLA, then they'll be the two that will probably be the most interesting to watch.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. That will be the end of our questions today. And now I'm going to give it to RAPS to end this webinar. Thank you, everyone.